Okay, so obviously I've been putting off the long shows list for like fucking months now. Um, because this list is terrifying. You see, I don't expect to finish most of these. I expect some of these to drop in one episode, maybe two, maybe three. You know, like some of these I have no expectations for. In fact, a lot of them I don't expect to actually end up finishing. The problem is that if I like one of them, then I'm trapped with it for 26 to 39 to possibly even 50 episodes. So that means it's that long until I get to move on to the next show. And that's what's made this so terrifying. But we've cleared out all the short shows, so there's nothing left. Nothing left to impede the movement into the long shows. You know, the short shows are an easy way out, but now it's just me and these fucking long shows, and I just gotta pull the band-aid off, take them on one at a time, and, you know, uh, hope I hate half of them so I don't have to watch all the whole thing. All right. Number 5, Active Raid. Well, that's the one I have kind of the lowest expectations for. So I've already seen the first 2 episodes. I'll just be starting from episode 3, I guess. So if you've seen my 250 anime recommendations video, then you may remember how I had like a special category just for mecha. And my logic behind that was that, okay, I can't concentrate with the show still playing in the background. My logic behind that was that mecha shows have a tendency to just do like whatever the hell they want because there's mechas and they like that's the appeal, so the show can just kind of be anything. And so mech shows have this tendency pretty much from like Macross onwards to just like have like dramatic scenes, comedic scenes, weird stuff that's not even easy to classify, you know. They just tend to like have all kinds of weird elements in them, and I find that aspect of them fascinating. Even though there's lots and lots of mech shows that I don't really like, or just I don't get the point of them, because if you don't care about the mechs, then it's like, you know, the rest of the show is kind of gibberish. And Active Raid is kind of in that boat, but that's also why I wanted to give it a chance, because I saw the first 2 episodes back when they came out for the Weebcast, and I was just kind of fascinated by how much of a clusterfuck it is. That there's just so many weird errant elements and no apparent like genre. Like I guess it's kind of a cop drama, like a you know episodic procedural police story, but with all these weird details and this bizarre setting, and strange character interactions. And I was like, this is something that only mech shows do this, you know, I feel like. And I'm pretty sure Taniguchi Goro's involved with this show, the guy who directed Code Geass and Infinite Revias and S. Cryed, all of which are shows that I like, not that I've loved. And he also directed Planets, the anime version. I mean, he's done some weird stuff, so it's not like he's always amazing, but I'm curious about him, you know, when a work comes out that he's attached to. I don't know if he directed or produced this or was like chief director. He was involved somehow. I remember that. So basically the show is just so off kilter that I wanted to like it. And also I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that the main girl looks a little bit like Tsunemori Akane from Psycho Pass, and it keeps fucking with my brain. So I think that's part of why I wanted to watch it. But like, you know, it really is an incomprehensible mess. Like, I'm watching episode 3, and it's just like, I don't know what the point of this is. Like, I kind of get, yes, it's a police procedural, but like, it jumps around so much between different characters and places and events, and it doesn't like explain the motivations very clearly for like what's going on or why all this is happening. It just feels like it feels like a random stream of consciousness almost. So yeah, I can't say I am too. There's no way I could handle a whole 2 seasons of this show. Like even one episode is just kind of bewildering. I mean, it's somewhat entertaining because there's so many weird things happening, but there's no like central thing I care about that makes me want to watch the whole show, and that's why I don't think I'll continue. And I don't think anyone will be surprised because this show is pretty badly rated by most people. Okay, so I'm going to change this up a little bit. Rather than doing this completely at random, I'm going to try to knock out the shows that I have the least confidence I'm going to continue first. Just so I can get them off the board and I can just worry about the stuff that I actually, like, you know, expect to watch all of. Because, like, I've seen the first episode of Iron Blood and Orphans, and I had initially dropped it. It was only because I heard a lot of good things about the show that I decided I'd give it at least a second chance. So there's a good chance I'll just drop it again pretty quick. Kuromukuro, the first episode was pretty mediocre. I've mostly heard, like, that this show's pretty meh. I haven't really heard any glowing reviews of it, so I'm not expecting to love that one either. And, so those are the two I want to get out of the way quickest. I have not seen any of Underwater Ray Romano 2, but I've heard that that it's not amazing and that it goes downhill. So, you know, I'll give it a chance. I don't know how I'm gonna feel about it till I watch it. But I expect to probably finish Lupin. Concrete Revolutio is pretty fun. JoJo, and I haven't seen any of this Precure season yet, but. You know, I'm just gonna watch Kuromukuro, Iron Blooded Orphans, and Underwater, or well, those two first, and then Underwater Ray Romano, just to try to get through the stuff that, I mean, hey, if who knows, maybe I'll end up loving these unexpectedly. I think I'll do Aibo first, then Kuromukuro, and then Underwater Ray Romano. Iron Blooded Orphans is super boring, really hard to stay awake through, and I'm not even tired. I mean, it seems like it seems fine. It doesn't seem like some kind of terrible show. It's just boring and dry, and it really feels like it's trying to cram this fucking child soldier thing down my throat. Like half the dialogue is, they're children. Children are fighting a war. It's a war with children. They're making children fight. And I'm just like, yeah, okay, I got it. You don't gotta sell me on how dark it is that children have to fight, alright? I get it. I saw children fighting and I went, oh, that's dark, you know? You know, they ram it down my fucking throat that they're children. Anyway, it's boring. I'd quit. Okay, man with a mission OP, though. Someone explain to me, what is this meme with too small of subtitles? This is on Netflix. And it's even worse on Daisuke. Why are the subtitles so fucking small? Look how far back I'm sitting. You think I can read this shit easily? Give me the big-ass Crunchyroll subtitles at least. God damn. Alright, I watched episode 2 of Kuromukuro, and I'm not interested in continuing. It's dumb. It's just really dumb. The whole plot conceit seems really dumb. And also the robots look really dumb. I guess the basic idea of this show, like the reason for it to exist, is samurai fighting robots. And the samurai robot fighting is alright. It's passable, I guess. The robots look really stupid, though. So it's not really that cool to watch them fight because they look so dumb. They're just not, like, the most horribly generic and unmemorable robot designs possible. Yeah, much like Active Raid, it seems to use the mecha genre in a way to just kind of throw in whatever. Like, there's just all these weird random details and you know, sort of hard to pin down genre. This one seems more action focused than Active Raid. It's a lot less incomprehensible than Active Raid. I could follow what was happening. It just wasn't interesting. And you know, I mean, episode 2 is pretty much trying to be like an action movie kind of, you know, non-stop thrill ride sort of episode, which is really not what I wanted from episode 2. I would have preferred it be one that, like, just fleshes out the story, because I currently don't know or care much about it. But honestly, I cannot possibly imagine how this dumbass story could be interesting, so... yeah, I don't care enough to continue it. Alright, I made it 4.5 episodes into Underwater Ray Romano 2, the False Faces or whatever. and it's all right, but I don't care enough to continue. So Utawareru Mono, if anyone didn't know what the fuck Underwater Ray Romano is, it's a long-standing meme on A. But anyways, Utawareru Mono, there was a show that came out back in 2006, an adaptation of an eroge, I believe, that that I watched like 9 years ago, and I remember watching it with my friends. Like I think we watched the whole show in like a day, all 26 episodes in one sitting, and it was a pretty fun time. It was like the epitome of like a strong six, light seven kind of show. One that it was real slow, and it wasn't that smart or that cool, and it definitely wasn't that well animated, but it had just enough of interest to keep me watching, to keep us engaged. It was about this guy who just fucking wakes up in a forest with no memories, and these cute animal eared girls take him into their village, and he just turns out to be the coolest guy ever. He's just this super smart, cool, nice dude who it turns out is a master tactician, and after a few episodes, we find out that like this village is under the rule of like an oppressive lord, like an asshole who runs their people. And so Hakuoro, the masked man, the masked I didn't even mention he wears a mask, but the memoryless masked man leads them in a tactical battle to try to take back or to take over the land. Like they're gonna overthrow this oppressive ruler and put in a new power, and then continue to move on to greater foes. But it takes a long time for this to happen, and the show just kind of ends like, there's still a lot more that clearly needs to happen, but there was no season 2. It never got a second season, and so I remember at the end just being like, oh man, I'd really like it if they made another season of this and we got to see the rest of this journey. But they never did. And then they finally made a new Utawareru Mono show, but rather than season 2, it's like a spin-off reboot-quel kind of thing. It's another guy who wakes up with no memories and is found by a cute cat-eared girl, and is taken into their village. And much like Hakuoro, and by the way his name is Haku, much like Hakuoro, he's very intelligent. It's not clear if he's tactically intelligent yet. So far he seems like more of an engineer, mathematician kind of guy. But it's a very similar setup. But at least, unlike Brave Witches, this one is at least not the exact same fucking show. Like, at least the things that are happening and the characters are different enough that it is, it's the same setup, but a new kind of place, new kinds of problems springing up at the very least. It's not just a one-to-one copy of the first season like Brave Witches was that I talked about in the previous. What the hell is going on with my hair, man? This is just a clusterfuck. It looks like it's just going everywhere. I can't do anything with it. I don't know how to fix it. Oh, that's all right, I guess. So I can't stop fucking with my hair now. So yeah, it's a similar premise, but it's not as interesting so far. There's no clear like villain or goal, and I'm sure that will be introduced, but it's taking an awful long time. I'm 5 episodes in, and I'm not sure what this main character is going to be used for, like what their ultimate goal is, which I'm pretty sure was understood by this point in the original show. And the characters aren't quite as endearing, because Haku, unlike Hakuoro, aside from the fact that he's really intelligent, like in terms of maths and stuff like that, he's totally incompetent at everything else. He's super weak. He's kind of a fuckboy, hates working, So, but for some reason, he's extremely charismatic, and everyone loves him, and he's easy to make friends with. Which kind of comes out of nowhere, because like in episode 4, the whole episode is about this idea that he's extremely charismatic, but we're displayed that by just like seeing him make friends with people. It's not entirely clear like why he makes friends so easily. Like, what is he saying to them that's convincing them so quickly? It's just like an ability he has, but I'm not really sure why he would have that ability, because he doesn't seem that charismatic to me as a viewer. So it's odd. Whereas with Hakuoto, he was legitimately charismatic to me as a viewer because he was such a cool guy. He showed up and immediately was everyone's best friend, and like just because he was smart and strong and could do everything. He was a badass, you know, he was just the coolest guy. Um so yeah, like it's weird that they're kind of duplicating that, but with a character who's not as magnetic, and the characters around him aren't as imminently memorable as before. Um, but I will say that what made me watch 4 episodes of this, and what I think is generally what I like about Utawareru Mono, um, is that it's a fantasy series where like people are just simple and are just living like simple lives out in the country. Like I feel like with a lot of fantasy, um, you know, they every character has like some kind of really out there anime personality. You know, like they all have to be wacky caricature kind of characters, which um is odd because I feel like in the old days, you know, because most fantasy takes place in like a medieval or even feudal sort of society, personality and like that kind of eccentricity was probably not much of a thing because most people just fucking work. Most people just work in the fields and do normal shit and like, you know, just work to keep their community going and surviving. And that's sort of the atmosphere of Utawareru Mono. Everyone's just like normal farm people, you know? They're all just like, yeah, we work all day, we sleep all night, you know? When our women come of age, they hook up with a guy and start a family, and they start their own farm. You know, and the cycle of life continues, and it's a very like simple time kind of thing. And you know, the intrigue comes from these people having to react to the world around them. To like, you know, like the first thing that they have to fight in both versions of the show is like a big monster, and it's just like, how will our village deal with a big monster? You know, how will this new guy, you know, what special thing will he bring to the table that will make it easier for us to fight a big monster? You know, and then, well, if we've got an oppressive regime in power, how are these new guys' talents going to help us to take down that regime? You know, but aside from that, all the characters are pretty much just like, you know, people trying to make a living out in the middle of the fucking nowhere. And I like that. I like that element of it. It feels very relaxing and old timey and homey. And I don't know. It seems like maybe a guy thing to enjoy this kind of stuff because it does harken back to a time when it's like, you know, men were warriors and women were healers, and like, 'cause that's how it always. Now, mind you, there's always like super strong chicks in Utawareru Mono. There was like really badass warriors and stuff, but like the main girls are like healers who take care of the guy and are just like immediately in love with them kind of thing. But not in like that anime infatuation way, but just in a way that's like, oh, we're all members of the same community, so we're basically all the same person. Taking care of you is taking care of me. Let's like no reason for us not to all be close, kind of thing. Um, I don't know. I like that. I like that atmosphere in a show, but this show does that. It has that same atmosphere, but this one's just a lot less interesting. Haku's less of a watchable guy than Hakuoto was. Girls aren't quite as cute, and there's not as much of a pressing narrative that makes me want to continue. And like episode 5 has just been like a lot of wasting time. Like half the episode has just been about introducing this new girl who has a really annoying voice. I don't know if she's doing like a weird accent or what's going on. She's got a really annoying voice. And they're just kind of like wandering around town doing whatever, and I was like, this is the time when I need this show to pick up. You know, we're at the point where I needed this to give me like some kind of spark of reason to keep going, and I'm not getting it. So I'm just like, fuck it. I'm not getting enough out of this show to keep watching. Okay, we've taken out all of the ones that I said I was gonna just take out quickly. We're down to these 4. I think I'm just gonna watch these 4 in an order that makes sense to me. So first I'm going to check out Mahotsukai Precure, because that's the only one I haven't seen any of out of these. I mean, it's very long. It's 50 episodes. But there's a chance I just won't even, you know, care enough to watch the whole show. So I'm at least going to give it a chance, and then, see how I feel, and then we'll worry about the other three. I know it's always weird when I walk around in these, but I just happened to be standing up when I turned on the camera, so whatever. So I'll just talk a little bit about Precure in general. I just watched the first 2 episodes of Mahotsukai Precure, and I have the exact same problem that I always have with every magical girl show, which is that it's slow and long, and they're all the same. I love the magical girl aesthetic. I love the idea of like a show about just some adorable little girls who are just good people, going around helping others out, fighting bad guys, saving the day. It's fun, it's simple, it's cute. But there's a lot of them, and they're all fucking long. Every magical girl show is long as shit. And any time I spend watching one is time that I'm just not completing the unbelievable number of them I have on hold. Because that's the thing. I always start these shows, and then I go, there's not enough, narrative pull to make me want to watch the whole thing. Most of them are episodic. They're just cute little shows. Most of them are pretty slow, and the episodes feel really long because they're so slow. It's not enough that they're long shows, but each individual episode feels like I'm there all day, especially because they usually have transformation sequences and action scenes, and I tend to check out for a lot of that. Even in the shows I really like. The only magical girl show I can remember finishing is Cardcaptor Sakura, which was long as fuck. It took me a week to do, and I fell into a total stupor watching a lot of it. My brain just hazed over, and I glided through 70 episodes. It felt like an eternity, but it was a great show. I've seen 22 episodes of Heartcatch Precure, and even in that show, which I really like anytime it gets to the transformation sequences, I just kind of zone out a lot of the time. Now, and the thing that helps a lot of the Precure seasons, because I've seen probably 10 episodes of, which one was it? Sweet Precure, which I also really like. But most Precures have really kick-ass fight scenes, which helps a lot with getting through that later half of the episode. Mahotsukai, from the 2 episodes I watched, much less interesting fight scenes than previous seasons. I mean, considering this came right after Go Princess Precure, which had the first episode with this crazy-ass Sakuga fight at the end. That was the most exciting part of the episode. In Mahotsukai, as soon as they start fighting, I'm just like, alright, I'm ready for this episode to be over. I don't want to watch this fight because it's not even interesting or cool. It just feels like a waste of time. So, yeah, just like every other magical girl show, I just feel like, man, I could watch this at... I don't feel any need to finish this. There's a million other shows that are exactly like it that I need to get around to. And, there's nothing special enough about this one that I need to finish it. Whereas, with Cardcaptor Sakura, that show is special. It feels different. It's got a little bit more going on. And I'd like to rewatch that show someday. But it's hard to imagine, watching Heartcatch Precure and Cardcaptor Sakura and Ojamajo Doremi or some other, or Sailor Moon, all these ones that I've had on hold forever. It's hard to imagine doing all of that in the same year, when it takes a fucking week to watch 50 to 70 episodes of a show, and to do that for multiple shows that are practically the same in the same year would be just a lot, and it's hard to find time for because I have all this other anime I gotta watch. So, yeah, once again, it's I don't dislike this show enough to drop it. I like an adorable magical girl show as much as the next person, but how can I justify it? How can I possibly justify 50 episodes when each one is just not that engaging? Each one is just kind of slow, a little boring, and my brain hazes out for the last 5 minutes or so, and then there's 1,000 others I should watch. So yeah, I can't see myself making any progress on this show. Certainly not today, or in the short time I have before before I want to get this fucking end of the year video done. It's yeah, I cannot possibly watch 50 episodes of this in a row, and to not do so for, other shows I want to get to. I really want to watch Ojamajo Doremi in the near future. So hopefully that'll be my next Magical Girl show. But who knows? Alright, we're down to only 3 left. Now, I'm thinking the best way to tackle these will be in order of episode count from least to most. So, Concrete Revolutio, then Lupin the Third, then JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Diamond Does Not Crash. I know this will piss off everybody because everyone just wants me to fucking watch a JoJo, but well, save the most exciting for last, yeah? Why not? Alright, let's try Concrete Revolutio. Sorry about the walking around, but my body is being destroyed from laying around so much, so any excuse I can find to stand is I'm gonna take it. Anyways, alright, I made it 7 episodes into Concrete I got a sneeze coming. I made it 7 episodes into Concrete Revolutio, and I just couldn't take it anymore. It's a really fascinating show, in a way. It's interesting, and it has really amazing production design, great fucking character designs, artwork, animation, really cool color palette. I like the overall tone of the show, but it's just fucking confusing. It's just a fucking total confusing mess, and I mean, I knew that from the beginning. I knew that before the beginning. Because this is a show. This show comes from probably one of my least favorite anime writers ever, which is a guy named Sho Aikawa. Sho Aikawa writes shows that are just like a spattering of insane ideas. It's all just like every crazy idea he has, he puts into a show. So there'll be tons and tons of like random social commentary, genre bending, every like cool idea he has or uncool idea he has is all there in the show. This is the guy who wrote the original Fullmetal Alchemist adaptation, which once it got into its anime original content in the second half, is a fucking nightmare. I hate the whole second half of Fullmetal Alchemist, the original show, especially the ending. He wrote Neo Ranga, which is a show I actually really like most of because it's so fucking weird, but the last 10 episodes are abysmal and definitely drag the show down considerably. I believe he wrote Ungo, which Fullmetal Alchemist and Ungo and Concrete Revolutio are all the same writer-director team. And Ungo is a confusing clusterfuck that I somehow watch. Somehow I always end up watching his shows all the way just because they're so weird. There's just something, it's like, I can't turn away from just how bizarre the things I'm seeing are. I can't turn away from just how weird his writing is, how he seems to just be confusing on purpose somehow. He wrote Chaos Dragon, last year, which was that show that, it was just a fucking mind-numbing clusterfuck and was apparently based on, a D&D game he played with some friends, and they made a D&D style pen and paper RPG or something, and then based a show on it on a campaign they did or something like that. That's what I heard. I don't know how true that is, but anyways, the way he writes is just so confusing and I don't. And oh, funny story too. I went to a panel at Otakon one year that was called anime creators who make dumb weird shit or something like that, and that was definitely the title on the docket. And it was funny because the guy was talking about Sho Aikawa for some of his work in the 90s, where he did these really edgy OVAs that had again all this socio-political commentary, but it was just characters just dispensing it, and always a very cynical worldview, always a very the government's full of lies and is trying to control you kind of writing. And but it was for shows like Angel Cop, these really trash 90s OVAs, and the guy was making fun of these, and then he brings up Fullmetal Alchemist, but the guy running the panel had A, not even seen Fullmetal Alchemist, and B, didn't really seem to know shit about Sho Aikawa, and I was sitting there watching this panel well, now this all makes sense to me. I know this guy. I know what he does, in the modern day. He's doing the same shit. So Concrete Revolutio is another. It's the same. It's the same as his other work in that it's a confusing clusterfuck with a lot of interesting ideas, a lot of weird, off-kilter ideas, and it's got like magical girls and mechas and superpowers of every kind and kaiju and just everything you can think of. It's in the show. It's all there. Everything's in the show, and it takes place out of order. It's like keeps cutting it back and forth between the future and the present in the story. It never explains why. It never explains much of anything. Every character seems to have a different goal. Like they're all multifarious and stuff, and like everyone's got something going on. Everything's complicated, everything's weird. There's always just moments that a thing happens that's kind of inexplicable and you're hoping it'll eventually make sense, but only some of it probably ever will. And in the meantime, the show never answers questions. It only raises more. You know, like every time you think you might get an explanation for something, it just raises a whole bunch of new questions. And honestly, I feel like part of the reason that the show is so disorganized is to cover its tracks, because there's certain stuff that would be contradictory. There's certain elements where, like, you're in this world where everyone's got superpowers, and, like, there's this girl, like, I just watched episode 7, which was about Earth-chan, this, like, robot superhero girl who senses when people are in danger and then goes to save them. And the way that this power is presented, it's almost like, how can there even be anyone in trouble in this world when this superhero exists who senses when anyone's in trouble and helps them, you know? But, like, because she's just one more chaotic element in this insane table of elements, then, you know, it kind of gets swept under the rug. But, like, so much of it is just about having, like, a neat little idea without bothering to, like, reconcile all of it against each other and, like, I don't know, present something cohesive that I can connect to on any level, because the characters, like, all of them are so, again, multifarious that, like, it's impossible to know, like, whose side am I supposed to be on, or who do I care about, or what are they really trying to do. You know, like, everyone's got a double identity, everyone's got something else that's waiting in the wings that they're gonna do, and then we keep cutting to the future where they're all in completely different positions. Like, we keep cutting to these scenes from the future where, like, everyone's against each other and they're all in different factions from where they are now. And it's just like, why am I even watching the older stuff if I know that it's all gonna fucking blow up in the later half? What the hell is going on in this fucking show? And I'm just, you know, I keep watching it hoping that eventually I'm just gonna get into that groove and be like, you know what? I just want to see cool stuff. But, like, the stuff, none of it's that interesting. None of it's that new or, like, different that it makes me feel like I want to see this just to see where it's going to go. Like, you know, there was 2 whole episodes dedicated to this kaiju movement, and it was just kind of weird and confusing and not that entertaining. And then the last episode was about, like, this comedy band who has superpowers. Wasn't that interesting. Earth-chan was okay. I just, like, after all these episodes, I'm like, I don't really care about this on the moment-to-moment level enough to put up with the fact that it's just totally confusing, and I don't care about it in the long term at all. Like, I don't care about these characters or what they're gonna go through because they're so fucking hard to read. So yeah, I don't know. I just kind of, like, if I was more down for each individual episode, like if I really found these concepts super engaging, then I'd probably want to continue. And I mean, I made it pretty far just on the strength of how much I want to like a show like this, how much I want to be into something that's so beautifully made and off-kilter and bizarre, but at the same time, I'm just, like, shaking my fist, like, it's just another one of his fucking things. It's another Sho Aikawa show that makes no fucking sense, and I know it's gonna end in an unsatisfying way, because they always do. His endings are always confusing, fucking mess clusterfucks. I even looked up some reviews and saw other people going like, yeah, season 2 is pretty good, but the ending, I don't know. And I'm like, I'm gonna spare myself the pain. I know what I'm heading for, Like, Neo-Ranga and Fullmetal Alchemist have two of the worst endings I've ever seen of an otherwise okay show. So I don't want to have to go through that again. And Ungo Ungo was always a confusing mess. And I think I only watched it because it was only 11 episodes, and I just, like this show, it was beautifully produced and weird enough to keep me going, but, like, I remember the ending just being like, well, that was a fucking thing I watched. I sure did sit through 11 episodes of Ungo. And that's how I feel like this is going for me. Like, at the end, I'm just going to be like, well, I sure did watch a whole season of Concrete Revolutio. That's a thing I can say I did, but what do I have to show for it? I have no idea. So yeah, I think I'm going to give up on that one. Alrighty, well, I just watched all of Lupin the Third Part 4, also known as Lupin the Third 2015/2016, including the 2 specials, though I haven't gotten to the movie yet. And it was a really good time. I enjoyed all of it. Obviously, the fact that I finished it probably suggests that anyways, considering how long the show is. But yeah, it was really fun. So for anybody who doesn't know what Lupin is, Lupin the Third is basically the world's most important fan fiction. It's the story of the, like, illegitimate Japanese son of a famous French gentleman thief character named Arsène Lupin. But Lupin III is also a gentleman thief, and he travels around with these 2 companions, one Jigen, who's a master marksman, and Goemon, who's a master swordsman. And he's got the love interest, Fujiko Mine, who is a super sexy girl who is a master of disguise and deception. And they fucking rob stuff, and it's a very lighthearted, brisk, and fun time. It sort of takes the classic old school machismo of, like, James Bond, but focusing on, villainous characters, but gentlemanly villain. They're not really villains, but they're stealing stuff. They're not good guys, but they're not bad guys either. And they're mostly just in it for the fun. It's like the stuff that they want, it doesn't even really matter to them. They just enjoy the thrill of stealing. And there's the Inspector Zenigata, who is obsessed with trying to capture Lupin and follows him all around the world trying to capture him. These are the principal characters. The reason I'm establishing all of that is because that's basically all you need to know about Lupin the Third. There have been hundreds of episodes spanning like 50 years, and they're all pretty much exactly the same. Like, the story is always, Lupin's trying to steal something, Zenigata's trying to stop him, Fujiko's in there somewhere, with her own agenda. Jigen is just there to shoot guns, and Goemon's there to cut stuff, and like each character will have some of their own episodes, or some, each episode has its own unique, turn of events, but they're all essentially the exact same thing. But what makes the show work is just how strong all those characters are. The fact that each one has such a distinctive, like, personality and job type, and really just the whole character of the show, that all the characters are just very surly badasses. They're all superhuman. They all have, like, superhuman powers. They, like, Goemon can cut buildings in half with his sword and shit. It's like absolutely ridiculous strength that all the characters have, and they can basically do anything. But they all have this sly, nothing gets them down kind of attitude. They're always having a good time, no matter what the situation is. Lupin can always spin anything into coming out, in his favor. And they're all just like trying to fuck around and do this stuff because they feel like it. And that's what makes it fun. And for me, it's particularly fun because they're all like, it's fun watching a show about a bunch of, like, grizzled adult characters who have a lot of history behind them. Like, not just in the sense that the show's been around for so long, but that, like, these are all characters who they have that classic pulp thing, which this happened all the time in pulp media, where like all the characters seem to know each other and have met in some other past event. You know, like everyone has had run-ins in the past, and they have all this like weird worldly knowledge and stuff like that. You know, same goes for stuff like Indiana Jones or James Bond, like all those classic like pulpy things. And um I love that every character in this smokes like crazy, which it was bad idea to watch this show right after I quit smoking because it made me just want to the whole time, though I did not. Um, but this particular season, this new arc of Lupin takes place in Italy, and it's like I think that Lupin's probably really popular in Italy or something because the show was broadcast there. I think first. I think it was even broadcast there before Japan, and it's like got all these Italian endorsements. Lupin drives a Fiat throughout the whole season, and like which is really cool. I love that's a great use of like an endorsement deal. And there's just lots of Italian sort of fan service in the show. Like it's all in Italy, and it's very much based around being in Italy. Um, but but uh, but this particular season has a very unique sort of flavor to it, where it's got this really awesome art style, phenomenal character art, and color design, and everything looks really cool and poppy. And there's some great Sakuga scenes in certain episodes. Most of it's not all that like super well animated, but it's just gorgeous to look at. The backgrounds are beautiful. The character art is beautiful. And it introduces a few new recurring characters. Most importantly, a girl named Rebecca Rossellini, who is like a fashion model who's like super rich and becomes a thief just for the thrills. And she is probably one of the hottest anime characters I've ever seen, and I absolutely am in love with her, and she's the best. This show is laden with waifus. There's just so many amazing, beautiful women in this show who kick ass, and I want to marry. Of course, obviously Fujiko being one of the main ones, one of the most classic femme fatales in all of fiction. So yeah, it's pretty much the Lupin formula, but with some new characters in a new location, and occasionally some really weird shit. When the show actually gets into its main plot, because it has an overarching plot. It's sort of a standalone complex kind of thing, where there's like certain episodes that are relevant to the story, and then certain ones that are just kind of random, adventures. The plot relevant episodes get really trippy and are about like some really weird high concept shit. Now, granted, Lupin is never like a smart show. It's never like a very intelligent show. None of the cases that the characters go through are very complicated. None of them have like a brilliant twist that totally makes like the whole thing worth it. It's just entertaining. It's not very smart. And there's a lot of dumb stuff that happens. Like, for instance, that guns, if not held by the main characters, totally useless. There are so many scenes of characters just like standing in the middle of machine gun fire and nobody gets hit because they're the main characters, you know? People can dodge bullets. Lots of people can just dodge bullets. They just can do that. Like, everyone's so ridiculously superpowered that, like, there's no action scene that you can really take all that seriously, which is why sometimes it's a little tiring when they have action scenes at all, because it's just like, all right, well, I know this isn't gonna, it can be fun when they're over the top and wacky, but sometimes it's just like, why are we bothering to show them running from machine gun fire that they're never gonna get hit by? So, there's plenty of dumb stuff in the show. And certainly not every episode is as good as every other one, but I was consistently entertained, and I just really enjoy seeing these characters do whatever. I've watched a handful of Lupin the Third from other seasons in the past. It was on Adult Swim back when I was a teenager, so I saw a bunch of it there. Read a couple volumes of the manga. I've seen some of the movies, and it's always a pretty good time. But this one in particular, because the art style is so beautiful, and it just kind of adds a little bit more modern edge to the characters and to the pacing of the show. It's a little faster. It's a little more detailed in everything. It just looks so good. Like it takes the classic designs, which look better than ever before. In fact, they actually look more like the manga than before, because the manga has a really detailed art style that I don't think it was really captured by any of the previous adaptations to the extent that it is here. So, the character like line art and everything looks really beautiful, and then they also have these like modern post processing effects and stuff, and color gradients that look really impressive. Um, so yeah, it's just it's all around probably one of the best takes on Lupin that there's been, in especially visually. And all the new characters are really fun, especially Rebecca. There's the MI6 detective Nix, who's a pretty fun guy. Um, what else did I want to say about this? Oh yeah, one odd complaint I have is with the voice acting, because of the fact that this tends to happen with classic Japanese series. They really like to keep bringing back the classic actors, for as long as they can. And in the case of Lupin, it's strange because, like, okay, I remember I watched one of the Lupin movies from 1991. And in that movie, Lupin and Jigen both sound like just old ass men. Because Lupin's been going since the fucking like late 60s, I want to say, is when the first anime started, like 69. These dudes were fucking old by the time, by the time they got to the 90s. And it was like both of them just sounded like, way older than the characters should sound. Which is weird, but I guess if you're just gonna keep with the same actors forever, then whatever. But the guy who played Lupin died in 1995, and they replaced him with another guy. Now this guy still sounds fine. He plays Lupin and he sounds good as Lupin. And most of the other characters have new voice actors. Fujiko's played by Miyuki Sawashiro now, who's one of the most popular actresses of the last 10 years. Her performance is interesting because of the fact that Miyuki Sawashiro I see as an actress who I really like her, but at the same time, she's such a like technical actress that she sounds like she's acting a lot of the time. Like she sounds like someone attempting to be acting, which kind of works for Fujiko because Fujiko herself is full of shit and is always, duplicitous and is always putting on an act. So it kind of works for her, but at the same time, I don't know if she quite has the sultriness to pull off Fujiko, but I mean, she does have a hot voice, so whatever. So you've got most of them have either new voices or like, ones who've been around for 10 years or so. But then you've got Jigen, who still has his original voice actor, who is motherfucking 94 years old now. And he sounds like he was recorded on his deathbed. Like, and I don't know, like, how badly do I want to complain about it, right? Like, it's the same, like, it's kind of cool that it's the same guy who's been playing him for 50 fucking years, but at the same time, he sounds like an old-ass man. Jigen sounds 90, and he's, like, running around, cracking wise, and shooting guns and stuff, and it's like, his voice just sounds so old that, like, it's impossible to not hear the fact that it's an old-ass man. And it drove me a little crazy, but I mean, whatever, it's Jigen, he's cool as fuck, it doesn't matter who voices him, but yeah, other than that, everything's cool. It was a fun show. I would give it an 8 out of 10. All I have left to watch now is JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Diamond Does Not Crash, so let's fucking do that one now. So I just watched up through episode 6 of Diamond Does Not Crash, and to be perfectly honest, I feel like maybe I'm sick of JoJo, or maybe I was never cut out for JoJo in the first place, because I feel like I'm watching a different show than it seems like everybody else is watching. I feel like somehow what I'm getting out of JoJo isn't what everyone else is getting out of JoJo. Now there are things I appreciate about JoJo. I love it in concept. The concept is so great, all these different arcs with all these crazy powers, all this insane shit happening over such a long span of time. JoJo's really cool. Everything's named after great old prog bands, and rock, like all of rock history. It's fun knowing about JoJo. It's fun hearing people describe to me what a stand can do, or like what, like what the stand's names are and stuff like that. Like all that is fun. But actually watching JoJo, like 80% of it is just like a bunch of dumbasses screaming at each other. That's what the basic experience of JoJo is. Every character is a fucking idiot. All of them all of them are just loud, obnoxious assholes who are constantly screaming at each other about how stupid they are. Like, most of the dialogue is, like, "You fool! You thought you could defeat me? You were the fool! I can defeat you easily! Nuh-uh! I know you are, but what am I?" Like, that's like all the dialogue. All the characters are just constantly screaming at each other about how dumb they are. Or going like, "Ha! That was my trap!" And then everyone goes, "Oh my god!" Like, everything is a crazy, over-the-top reaction. And it just gets tiring, because that's all it is all the time. It's always just these over-the-top, ridiculous reactions and screaming back and forth. But, like, I just feel like every character is exactly the same. Every situation's, like, the only thing that differentiates the battles is the stands, like what their powers are, which are interesting. They're all interesting powers. How they play off of one another can be really interesting. But like the like the the why of what's going on, like, is always the same. Like, yes, the powers are different each time, and it can be fun to see the powers happen. But, like, aside from the powers, you're just watching a bunch of a bunch of dumbasses yell at each other all the time. And with this sense of, like, juvenile, gross out humor over all of it. And even like, I talk about this a few times. I've brought up that, like, JoJo is, like, full of scatological humor and, like, gross out humor, and people always look at me like I'm overstating it or something. Like, I made this point in a live stream recently, and I was like, yeah, there's, like, constant poop jokes and like, for some reason, dead animals, very popular subject matter. And people were telling me, like, oh, that's mostly a thing in part 3. It's not really like that in the later parts, in part 4. And, like, episode 2 of part 4, there's a dog shitting on everyone's yard, and the bad guy, like, takes dog shit and shoves it down a guy's throat. Episode 3, there's a reference to someone's balls shriveling up, then someone gets hit in the balls with a potted plant. Every time someone is, like, afraid, they've always got, like, snot running down their nose and shit, and, blood and snot are always exploding out of people. The whole show is characterized by these, like, juvenile, gross-out moments, and juvenile dialogue of characters yelling at each other about how stupid they are. And it's just like, when people talk about this show, about how, like, it's so clever and smartly written and stuff, I'm like, well, it's just got cool powers. The characters are all stupid. The dialogue is all stupid. And, like, that's fine and all. It can be fun to watch just for the powers and just for, like, the weird art style and the, like, part 4 has all these cool trippy colors and shit like that. But I just feel like the baseline experience is so redundant, and at this point I've seen, like, I watched most of part 3, I've seen, some of part 1, and now I'm, 6 episodes into part 4, and I'm just like, I get the JoJo experience, I get what it is, and I just don't seem to find it as endlessly appealing as everybody else seems to. I've talked to so many people who seem to enjoy the show a lot more than I do on just a baseline level, so I think maybe JoJo is just not really for me. And I mean, I don't want to, like, drop it. I still would love to watch all of JoJo just to eventually see all these crazy things, but at the same time, I feel like I get just as much out of hearing about them. In fact, sometimes when I see it in the show, like, someone will describe to me, like, what a stand power does, and I'll be like, wow, that's crazy. And then I'll, like, see how it's used in the show, and it's just, like, exactly what was explained to me. And I feel like I got just as much out of having it explained as I did out of watching it, executed. But I don't know. I'll probably eventually watch all of JoJo. I'd rather watch it with other people. I feel like it's not a good show for me to watch alone, because it's so dumb that, like, I'd rather just have, me and Shade or someone, get drunk and watch it and fucking have a party. But watching it alone and sober, it just really sinks in, like, how repetitive and how stupid it really is. And I don't know why I seem to be the only one who sees it that way. Well, everybody, that's it. We did it. We finished all the long shows. I mean, we didn't finish most of them, but we did all the long shows just as we did the short shows. And now everything's gonna be... Oh. What's that? What is this other you speak of? Oh. 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 Oh.